Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, they like Mike. Also, the V-Team takes a look at would-be speakers. And Governor Robert Bentley thinks he's still all McDreamy. Well, isn't that lovely? All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics with your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good to be home. I got to tell you,
The
it's
air
great.
conditioning.
Yes,
man.
it is.
It was about 180 degrees in that
Yes, in
parking
a
lot last
natless
week.
environment.
And without the fire ants.
Yeah, that filming out of doors, I'll leave that for Survivor or something like that. It was awful. Well, it has been a tragedy. It's been historic that our state has been damaged, but the guilty verdict in Lee County has put the legislature on notice that corruption should not be tolerated. However, Susan, there are a gang of apologists for Mike Hubbard. They're going around saying, oh, well, this and that, he's a wonderful guy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's the Baxley defense, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that is the Baxley defense. Well, they are, and I think a lot of them are trying to cover their own tracks. A lot of these people were at the pep rally. Some of these people signed a letter to the Justice Department, and now they're trying to backtrack and say that this was all okay. In fact, even Maynard Cooper came out with a guideline for lobbyists that appears to be telling Hubbard's attorneys, this is how you will appeal this. So there's a lot of people that got dirt on their hands, got dirt on their face, and I think they're really trying to backpack. In the meantime, I also know that a lot of legislators are beginning to look at their own contracts, as they should.
Well, Jack, I mean, the mayor of Opelika, the mayor of Auburn, Jay Jones, the sheriff, is still acting like Mike did nothing wrong.
Remember, he had a direct mail piece that he where he endorsed Mike, saying
Came
he's
straight
the most,
to my front door.
yeah, he's the most honest man I've ever known. Well, I mean, I'm sure he's dealt with a lot of criminals over his years. But
He might need to reevaluate his company.
Yeah, they all do. They all need to think about. He's not an honest man.
No, Beth, I mean, Mac McCutcheon, who wants to be Speaker of the House, came out and said that Mike Hubbard was a great leader and all this and that. I mean, how do these people look themselves in the mirror and the voters now?
Right, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, the words that Mac McCutcheon used, he says, we respect him as a leader, he accomplished many things, and I will concede that Mike Hubbard is a talented political mind. He flipped the State House in a cycle. I mean, he has done some impressive things, but there are plenty of leaders throughout history, if we think back, who could move the masses to maybe do things that weren't quite so honorable. So being a good leader is not the mark of who we need in office. We need somebody who will lead with integrity.
Well, and you have to look at what he led. He led failed abortion legislation. He led gun legislation. He led
Unconstitutional immigration.
Unconstitutional immigration. Meanwhile, education, mental health, Medicaid, the things that are important to the people.
The prisons are now, I bet, pretty important.
Yeah, all got left behind on the table.
Jack, I mean, it's not the Republican Party that you and I know. It's just that's not what he did.
I mean, it was a rule of tyranny. It was not, Mike didn't get people to act or vote for or against legislation out of respect. They did it out of fear. And you cannot, one day it's always gonna bite you.
One day this week, somebody came up to me and said that they had helped at several events, that Mike Hubbard had attended, and felt like he treated them like the help.
Well, that whole thing has that. I think it's just very telling that these guys that were at the pep rally with Mike. There was some 15 members of the House. There was a U.S. Congressman.
Mike Rogers.
Dale Marsh was there. Mike Rogers came out this week and said he didn't regret, Jack, saying that Luther Strange was engaged in
Chicago
gutter-style politics.
That was a very irresponsible statement, and the fact that he reiterated it shows what a fool he is to think that, how in the world can anybody say that with all the people they question? This was not a trial that was thrown together in a week. They took testimony from hundreds of people over a 2-year period.
Right.
And he makes a very irresponsible statement about a fellow Republican attorney general.
Well, and he, like other legislators, didn't bother to show up to the trial. Pebble Warren showed up a couple of times. Barry Moore showed up the first day, and that's it. The only other legislators, but either U.S. congressmen or Alabama legislators, the only other ones that showed up were there by subpoena.
Yeah, Barry Moore was there, Pebble and Warren. I went over to the Pebble and Warren and said, look, you're sitting behind Mike on his section. Are you like this colonel that's here, who's like 80 years old, he's wearing his military uniform every day, sits behind Mike, told me he hoped it would influence the jury. That's not what the uniform of the United States Army is about, is to influence a jury for a crook. But I didn't say anything because he's an older man, but I went over to Pebble and I said, what are you doing here? She said, well, I'm here. I told my colleagues I'd be here at the beginning and the ending, at least, because I wanted to know what was going on. And I said, well, if you really want to know what's going on, instead of being like that colonel over there, then you need to go sit on the other side.
Which
Right.
in the beginning, she
and
was
be
there.
here for all of it. Be here to hear the whole case spelled out before you, because I was only there for 2 days and I missed a whole lot of the in between. I mean, if you want to know the facts, come sit down and hear the facts.
But understand this, what she meant by the first day was she was there while they were selecting the jury. She and Susan Hubbard sat in the jury box during juror selection and took notes.
Well, I also want to mention that there were 37 House members that sent a letter to the U.S. Attorney, Loretta Lynch, asking for them to investigate Luther Strange and Matt Hart's misconducts, incompetence, or willful neglect of office. Beth, there were plenty of Democrats there, too.
There were, and if you look at which Democrats signed that letter and which Democrats have gotten some perks while they've been in there and who's been able to pass some legislation and who hasn't, we know that Mike Hubbard controlled the legislature with an iron fist. So if you didn't make him happy, your bills were dead in committee. And so if you look at who signed that list and then who was able on the Democratic side to get some bills through, it's a pretty clear distinction.
Jack, we only got about a minute. I mean, Mac McCutcheon, again, is on the stand, on the cheerleading stand with him. Some other ones that want to be Speaker of the House, or I think Mike Jones was there standing with him. How do these people actually come back and tell us that they can be true leaders when they stood behind a crook?
Well, they learn from a guy that they want to emulate. I hope not. I hope if any of these people decide to run, and if any of them win, who are Mike's disciples, that they will learn from his mistakes. If not, we're going to be right back where we were this time last year.
I don't think the state can stand that.
Well, and we're going to be right back where we were 3 years ago with Mike Hubbard. We're going to come at him with every fact we can find, because, listen, if you stand behind a crook, it makes me wonder, are you not a crook? We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. You know, we were talking about those who would want to be speaker. I mean, even before Mike Hubbard's political body was cold, Susan, the BCA chair, Billy Canary, Bob Riley, they were all on the phone trying to get their guy in. I mean, they loved him like a brother and like a son, but once he was gone, they needed a new son and brother.
I'm telling you, the call started that night. The minute that that verdict came in, those calls started.
That's what we
were
heard.
getting the calls the next morning about who would be the next speaker. And all of these names started coming up. So, and who was, you know, Canary was looking for this person. I believe he was behind McCutcheon is one of them. I don't remember who the other one is. But, you know,
What's the fascination with Matt
even,
McCutcheon?
I'm not
What's
sure.
he ever done?
Well, he's been rules chair, which means he's been Hubbard's
Which
right
means
hand.
he's been Hubbard's lackey.
Right.
Hubbard told him which bills got to the floor, which bills didn't, when they got to the floor. I mean, he was a lackey. Why should he be speaker?
I don't get it. I mean, I don't dislike Mac, but I don't trust him because he hasn't apologized for any of this stuff that he's done. I mean, he carried a bill well, let's skip on that. There's some other folks out there too.
Victor
Well,
Gaston
in
is
my
mentioned.
opinion, there are two people who are qualified to be speaker, and y'all can love me or hate me for this, but the two that are qualified are Johnny McMorrow and Alvin Holmes, because they were the only two who bothered to step up and say, hey, look, this is not something we need to do. I mean, and Alvin Holmes was the only person to vote against him as speaker. Johnny Mac's the only person who's called on him to resign. Now, I know there were some Republicans who were working to try to get him out when the speaker's election came around, and so some of those might be the ones who are better suited for this, but nobody bothered to speak up this whole time. And we've got to have somebody who can look this kind of behavior in the eye and say,
Alan
we can't have more of
Treadaway
it.
at a caucus meeting told Mike to his face, I do not believe that you should be speaker with these indictments hanging over your head. And I think he got his office moved and stripped of his committee
That
assignments.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
That sounds very Mike.
It's, just...
Treadaway would be a good guy.
Treadaway could be in there.
David Standridge would be a good guy.
Now, we did learn this week that Bill Poole is out at this time.
Yeah.
I think Jim Carnes would be great, but
Phil Williams announced early, and I think he's going to just
Phil Williams
still
would
run.
be super.
He is. He's very black and white. There's no gray with Phil Williams.
I mean, Phil
he's-
Williams wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't need
Now, this
anybody's
Lynn
money.
Greer rumor, surely
is-
that's a joke.
No, he said that.
And to
he
clarify
said
for the
it.
people
How
at
about
home,
a
the Phil
retread?
Williams that we're talking about is House Representative Phil Williams,
Not
not
Senator
Senator Phil Williams,
Williams.
who's
Right,
under
right,
investigation.
right,
Just to
right.
clarify for anybody who
Right.
might be confused on
Well,
that, there's two
I
of
mean,
them.
there's
And Will Ainsworth, too.
Will
He's-
Ainsworth. I mean, good guy. I mean, he's young, but
But he wasn't afraid.
Sam-
Once he realized that Mike was not the guy he thought he was not afraid to speak
no,
out.
he wasn't. He wasn't. He spoke out fiercely.
Jim Carnes,
yeah. I mean, there's some good folks out there that were not able to shine under Mike Hubbard, and hopefully they'll
And he
be
did
able to
that
shine.
deliberately because he did not want any competition.
Oh gosh, no.
When Jim Carnes was trying to organize a little resistance cadre of people, Cliff Sims at Yellowhammer found out about it and went up there and took pictures of everybody going into the meeting and reported back to Mike.
I think John Archibald put Mr. Sims in his place this week.
Well, he certainly did. I would.
I mean, I was surprised we didn't see Cliff up at the courthouse. Where was he when all
He
this was
nowhere
going
to be
on?
found. You know, they
According
didn't
to his
even story
Facebook,
about it.
somebody told me he's in Egypt. I don't know if he's going to work with ISIS or if he's just over there,
Well, I heard some of the members of the speaker staff were also at Disney World, so maybe there's
Yeah.
just everybody led to their
Yeah.
I've been in
corners.
a fantasy land for the last 15 years. What the hell,
Yeah. Well, maybe Sims is thinking about being a pharaoh. I mean, he is a household name in Alabama. So, bless his heart, as my mother used to say. Jack, you wrote an op-ed this past week, which gave me sort of an indication that Billy Canary, the head of BCA, is not on your Christmas list.
No, he's not, regrettably. Actually, I don't really know Billy. I'm not sure who does. He has run the business council for several years. And according to testimony in Lee County, he huddled with Mike every Monday morning. He and a few of the other lobbyists like Ross and Howe and Dax Swaddock, and kind of discuss what the agenda was going to be.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of dangerous that a lobbyist sits in your office and y'all decide what's going to come up and what's not.
Well, Susan, how do the big players like AT&T and Alabama Power and some of the giants on BCA. How do they have a guy running that organization who basically lied for Hubbard on the stand? I mean,
He didn't lie for it. I mean, he didn't not lie for him. He squirmed.
He forgot a lot.
He forgot. It was obvious. I mean, he literally squirmed in his seat. How can they trust this man going forward? How can they trust? Are you lying to me now? Are you lying to me then? It comes right down to that. This man is not an honest broker. He'll do whatever he has to do to save his skin or Hubbard's skin. And I don't think we need people like that as representing leaders of Alabama.
And as Burt Reynolds once said, the worst part about it, he's from out of state.
So is Mike Hubbard.
I
He's
have
from
an
Georgia.
editorial comment to make about these lobbyists that rolled on Mike, Jack Swaddock and Tim Howe and John Ross and Josh Blades, who was the chief of staff. People call them heroes. And I initially thought that. But you know what? They knew a crime had been committed, and they sat there, and they continued to make money off of their relationship with Mike Hubbard, who they knew was a crook.
But
that has really not been brought up, but I think it's worth mentioning.
But
and
I have to say,
I know all those guys, but I think that was just,
And while I agree with you, in the end, in the very end, they didn't turn out to be a traitor. They told Matt Hart what they knew, and they held to their word on the stand, and I can't say that for a lot of people I saw on that stand.
Well, John Ross was a little squishy.
He was a little
I mean, it's
squishy,
squishy.
well, when you have a gun to your head and, and you've been forced there by a subpoena, you should do the right thing.
But a lot of people didn't.
Well, a few people didn't.
Well, there were some real embarrassments, but this Billy Canary guy, he really needs to go. I was talking to several people that have been around politics for a long, long time, Republicans and Democrats, said Mike Hubbard is just the beginning. If Billy Canary doesn't go, it's still, we may not have the criminal aspect, but we have this dirty dealing, and where this one lobbying organization gets their way. I mean, when's it going to end?
Well, and don't forget, too, what's the thing we've always said? If something doesn't make sense, follow the money. So with Hubbard out of the picture, don't forget, Canary's still the checkbook.
Yeah.
He's the money behind all of this stuff. So depending on who the next speaker is, if they're cashing Canary's checks, then we're right back where we started.
Yeah.
We've got to have somebody who says this is
I
too
think
much.
Paul Busman called BCA the new AEA.
He did.
And he's absolutely right. Well, I think
He is.
that's exactly right. But you know what? They're not as smart as Paul Hubbard was, Dr. Hubbard. I mean, these guys are in the wrong lane. Anyway, we're going to hold it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you for waking up early and staying up late. Thanks for putting food on the table and teaching us the importance of hard work. Thanks for playing and laughing and chasing and splashing. Thanks for the games of catch and the piggyback rides. Thanks for helping us with our homework and encouraging us and cheering us on. Thanks for showing us when to take risks and how to be brave. Thanks for just being there. Thanks for showing us how to pray and give and grow in God. Thanks for teaching us how to be parents ourselves. It's not an easy job being a dad. Thanks for doing it. Happy Father's Day.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, we have to believe, given Van Davis's statement after Hubbard was found guilty, when he was asked, were there going to be more indictments related to this case, he said no comment. We've known Van Davis for a long time. That sounded like a
It did, because he was very quick to answer that question, and he answered it more than once. He answered it twice, because it was asked twice in that press conference. And you've got to understand that what Mike Hubbard took was also given to him. So it's a crime both ways. We're looking at where if Mike Hubbard, it was a crime for Mike Hubbard to take money from Will Brook, then it's a crime for Will Brook to give Mike Hubbard money or anything of value.
Beth, it sounds like a pretty open and shut kind of deal. That's the way the ethics laws read, doesn't it?
Right. I mean, but the thing is, I know Steve French signed an immunity deal. We don't know how many of these other people maybe signed immunity deals because of, their testifying could have impeded their Fifth Amendment rights against, self-incrimination. So there could be some immunity deals going on behind the scenes we don't know about. But you're right, Susan. When he said no comment, what I heard is like when you ask your mom if you can do something and she says, we'll see. Yeah. Like, that's what I heard. Okay, it's not a no. It's not a no.
And now Steve French did sign an immunity agreement, but I think he's going to have a lot of trouble with that. The fact that Matt Hart brought it up in court, put it on the screen, and read it to him and asked him if he had really understood what that meant. Was very telling.
I think most of these guys, like Tim Hamrick and the guy from Edgenuity and Jimmy Rain and Burton and all, their testimony was squishy. If they had some kind of immunity agreement, I don't see how they kept it. But Jack, I mean, it just wasn't.
Well, I didn't hear the testimony, but maybe Jimmy Rain qualifies under the friend.
No, the jury said otherwise.
Didn't think so.
Really? Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's right. The jury took that as a business transaction, not $150,000
Because that was one that we all thought was kind of weak, that it probably wouldn't stick and the friend deal would push
all
through.
The press corps had agreed.
I would agree that Governor Riley and Mike did have a very deep friendship.
I would agree.
But you don't give a friend $100,000.
I don't give a friend $100 without asking some questions.
What I would like to ask those guys is, how many other gifts have you given to Mike through the years?
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
Because that's in the statute. That's one of the things it says is like, the prevalence of other similar gifts being given in the past.
We've only got a couple of minutes here, so I want to get to this. Bentley says that he's on a mission from God, and that he has got to, do what God's will. I mean, this is the divine right of Bentley. I mean, he's the king now. Jim Ziegler, the state auditor, says the governor's delusional. Susan, what are we to believe?
Every politician that runs for office swears that they've been sent there by God. But what about when you lose? Did God set you up to lose, really? I mean, the governor also still thinks the people of Alabama really just love him like they always did. And I don't think that's true anymore.
Jack, I don't think they'd love him like they used to. Do you?
I'm not feeling it out there.
You're not feeling any love?
No, I'm not feeling any love. I mean, a lot of people I talk to are pretty disgusted and heard the tapes and, just think that, while he hasn't done anything criminally wrong that we know of, it's still an embarrassment.
Well,
of course, Jim Ziegler, Jim, he's not like Bentley from day one.
No, he's kind of my new favorite person, though, because he will just say anything.
Oh, he's off the wall.
He's like us, though. I mean, he'll just say whatever comes to mind. I mean, that's okay. They had this impeachment thing. Oh, I hadn't mentioned this.
And he wears the worst ties I've ever seen.
They're lovely. They're very patriotic. Beth, you sent us a video or a tape or whatever they call it from the Daily. Is it the Daily Show?
With Trevor Noah. Yeah.
And it was hilarious. There's a country song called "Hey." I love that too, and it's a beautiful song.
It is. Well, the point of it is that we are the laughing stock of the nation, and when he starts saying, people forget we still have to function at the state level, and Alabama's not functioning, it brings everything back together. That Hubbard's gone, Bentley needs to be gone, Roy Moore is in purgatory right now, so we just need to get a period put at the end of all of these sentences so we can move on and do something better for the state.
Yeah, and it's very telling that the governor said that the people of Alabama don't want to impeach him. That sounds familiar.
I read that headline and I thought, yep, Rebecca's back. That's the first thing I thought.
Well, that's what we're hearing. That's the rumor out there, Jack,
isn't it? In the Waffle House parking lot. Something like that.
I might have to start having breakfast at the Waffle House.
No doubt.
See about that.
They do. I think they do slip her in.
I have no doubt, because those are her writings.
That's the only thing they're slipping in.
You may want to.
No, probably not use the right term.
And it goes off the rails.
Well, remember, there is still a criminal probe at the whole action. Let's not forget.
You'll keep us abreast of it.
Well, we'll certainly try to. I don't want to split hairs, but there is a criminal investigation.
There's multiple criminal investigations.
Both federal and
state government.
Yeah, the worst kept secret is that the FBI investigation into Bentley, right?
Right. And Luther Strange was on the radio the other day, and they asked him if there was he said, we're looking into what he did with Spencer Collier. That's what we're looking at.
And remember, Spencer Collier was giving an affidavit to Matt Hart. He was doing his legal duty when all of this started. So
Well, this impeachment thing, though, to me is just a charade.
it is that. It's a
Because
charade.
we don't really know if we have an impeachment process in Alabama. No constitutional experts have said one way or the other. It may require a vote of the people to have one. But these guys, we do know the FBI. We all know that.
Well,
Let
if we
them
move at the
do
rate
their
we've
job. And you know, these guys that signed on saying Mike Hubbard was the best thing since sliced bread, do you want them looking into the governor?
Really?
I mean,
agree.
how come there's no trust between the people and that body across the street?
Well, it's like they protected a bully for the last several years, and then they go beat up the wimp for what they did protecting the bully. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
We got about 1 minute. I want to talk about one of my favorite senators from Etowah County. His name is
That's clear,
Phil
buddy.
Williams. A lot of folks refer to him as Niedermeyer or
Yeah,
Flat
Niedermeyer.
Top.
That's the senators refer to him as that, actually.
Well, his investigation is back on. They're investigating him for his consulting contracts. Many of them may be so, but they may be like Mike Hubbard's consulting
And remember,
contracts.
this relates also back to the Spencer Collier
Right.
Right.
issue.
Remember, guys, he was the one that Spencer Collier basically got fired because he wouldn't shut it down, right? Like that all kind of comes back together.
It all is coming together. I mean, this guy Williams, he's a joke. He's been in the Gadsden Times. He's
real easy to get a rise out on Twitter, though.
Yeah,
Yes,
he really
he is.
he has the thin skin of a stupid crook, but that's just my personal opinion.
I still haven't found anybody in Etowah County that likes him.
I'm telling you something,
they
these
reelect
people that
him.
enter into contracts and they're lawmakers would not have those contracts were they not lawmakers.
Because he didn't
and
have
they are
it.
clearly using their office for personal gain.
Well,
40 plus.
that's going to be the last word. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.